Okay, good morning. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the art lecture series. My name is Shaw Osha, and I organized this series. We're about to start, so I know you're having such a good time, which is nice community. Today we have Maikoiyo Alley-Barnes here, and he was here right before the pandemic, months before, so that's why it's nice that everyone's talking and together. We have two more lectures in this quarter. In week 3, we have Estefania Puerta, who will be coming in virtually from Mexico City, and then Samantha Wall, who will be coming up from Portland, both of them visual artists and with very interesting work and thinking and histories to share with us and to think about ourselves. To remind you, there will be about an hour. I think Maikoiyo is going to be pretty interactive, and but the idea is that there'll be time for Q&A. So take notes and interact and talk to us, talk to him. Skylar Bakken is going to come and introduce Maikoiyo to us. Thanks, Skylar.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for being here for today's artist lecture. My name is Skylar Bakken-French. I am a student of the Fall and Winter course led by Professors Shaw Osha, Chris Coffey, and Devin DeMonte, where we explore and examine the many facets of the monstrous and how we approach it through the self and the other. I am grateful to be introducing today's guest artist, Maikoiyo Alley-Barnes, who is an established and respected artist here in the United States and abroad, specializing in several mediums such as writing, filmography, curation, design, and sculptural works. It comes as no revelation that Alley-Barnes' sculptural work is recognized in particular, including his series on cranial adornment, terra nata, and narrative sculpture. The terra nata are sculptures which forge not only a space for existence, but a home for ancestral spirits. The materials for this series are otherwise discarded and forgotten objects whom are offered new life in the weaving of this devoted ritual. The terra nata relate to the themes similarly to what we are exploring in our course, such as inhabiting liminal space, the otherworldly yet familiar, and the gathering of the fragmented, which once seemed unwanted and forgotten, yet are rebirthed. In this new light, the imperfect is profound beauty that heals its simultaneous rejection. Cranial adornment is what can be understood as a love letter to ancient ritualistic headdresses within African culture. Alley-Barnes' Pelt series are composed of textiles calling attention to consumerism, race, and gender, creating a conversation that touches on both the sociological, spiritual, and the metaphysical. Alley-Barnes' filmography includes some examples of titled works, such as the debut of 2024's Alley, as well as The District, and many more. He is immersed in the creation of feature films, music videos, animation, as well as short films, including solo, and collaborative works with musical artists. Alley-Barnes has authored curatorial essays, exhibitional works, graphic novels, such as being an established writer for the visual album Quasars versus the Jealous Machines by Shabazz Palaces. He is a co-founder of the multi-disciplinary creative collective Black Constellation, a collaborative community in the artistry of, quote, the aesthetic, ritual, and continuum that is the Black metaphysical, unquote. His work is one which communicates the ancient and the infinite scope of spirit and culture, charged by profound yet undefinable categorization. Alley-Barnes is involved significantly within Community Commission Art, and is a nominator for regional art awards based in Tacoma. His solo and collaborative works have been acknowledged in dozens of exhibitions. In the summer of 2023, he presented Scent, Scent, Scents, his first public art installation on a larger scale. He has also received the Nettie Cornish Award for his transformative artistry in the category of open medium, as well as the Sue McMillan Artist Award for his contributions. This artist is one who pulls back the veil to reveal and offer the universal language of creativity, which aims to awaken, reflect, to sit with, and be moved by. Through his chosen mediums, he intuitively approaches cultural narratives openly in honoring the African ethos and the channeling of ancestral practice to explore race and its lived experience where physicality and the metaphysical conjoin. Maikoiyo Alley-Barnes, everyone.
Thank you so much, Skylar. That was very, 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 educational. You know, it's always nice to learn something new about your own work. I'm kidding, but you did a, excellent job there. It was really wonderful. Oh.
Turn this on.
Yep, I know how. But I don't want it on yet, Sha. Thank you, Sha. How are you all doing today? Yeah? I think Sha mentioned the fact that I've done this before. Yeah. The last one was in 2019. Actually, was it 2020? It was 2020, beginning of 2020, was that what it was? Late 2019? Yeah, it was right before the pandemic started, and I left my water bottle here, and I found out about the steam tunnels. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go find out. It's right underneath you right now. But yes, as Shaw mentioned, this is going to be a pretty interactive talk, hopefully. My interest is in you guys interacting with the work and me, and also having some kind of, when I was a younger person, we had these things called Choose Your Adventure books. Are any of you guys familiar with those, right? Yeah, they have these, these kind of circuitous and multi-optional pathways. Bandersnatch on Black Mirror was an example of a choose your own adventure. Sorry. But anyways, so in this, what we're going to do, since I kind of got called into pinch hit, that's a baseball reference for those of you who don't play baseball or watch it. And I have been all over the world talking about my work in different capacities. And the thing that's always a little difficult for me is okay, you've been making things for 30 years, you make things in all these different mediums, what are they going to be interested in? And it's always a crapshoot. And apparently I'm dynamic enough and somewhat charming so people at least tell me that it was interesting. My friend Larry says, just kinda. But so because of that, I do care about the user experience, right? And you guys are the users in this case, right? And so what I decided to do was where's the largest kind of survey of my work? We can do a website, I can do something really targeted, or we can go down the rabbit hole that is my oddly begrudging, though it may not seem so in its later stages, Instagram reality, which is not purely self-effacing, and some of it is glorifying, but most importantly, very little of it is selfies, and most of it is specific to my artwork. So what we're gonna do is we'll click on a thing, I'll give you 3 factoids. You guys can literally speak up and be like, I wanna know more. Does that make sense? We'll see how far we get, because I'm betting there's things that may interest you guys more than others, and we can kind of lean into the conversation from there, because I'm the expert about all of it. Does that sound good to everybody? Awesome. I don't mind snaps, but I have a thing about slam poetry, so it might cause me to go into I'm joking, but it might cause me to go into, am I though? But no, any applause or derision actually is welcome, because I grew up on British television. All right, so we are gonna turn this here screen on. You guys will have to bear with me. I am a Luddite. Does anyone in here know what a Luddite is? Rad. I don't use this as a loose or facetious term. I literally am not good at machines. So bear with me on that. We are going to, I have a child who's not a child, it's probably the same kind of age range as you are, who is 27, 26 years old. She helps me greatly with these things, and I have younger kids who help both of us with these things. So if I need someone's assistance, one of y'all three, or Otto back there, then please be gracious with me and we'll try to be good on time. And I will try to make sure that we leave some room for any questions that have kind of sat outside of where the discussion is. But feel no obligation to not chime in. Think of it more like British Parliament than your American classroom, yes? Oi, oi, you know what I mean? Right, okay, cool. Yays and nays and all that type stuff. All right, so we're gonna start with the first image. I got on Instagram in 2013, begrudgingly, because I did not have a cellular phone. But, okay, image number one is a still from a music video that I did for a Somali rap group from Seattle, Washington called Militia Mali Mob. This video is kind of lost in the ephemera. It's gorgeous. But due to some legal complications on the part of the artists, it no longer exists open feed or open source, right, because of some other things. But we get to Cedar's, it's a housing, funny enough, it's Minneapolis, right? So we go to this housing complex, like a big brutalist building. We meet these young kids, like these Somali kids, 12, 13, 14 years old. We find out that there's been a gang war going on in the thing, so it's hectic out there, but we're running with the people who are running stuff, so it's all good. I'm out there technically as a producer, but the director, who will remain nameless at this point in time, doesn't know what he's doing, has not brought lights, boop, boop, boop. So what ends up happening is that I end up having to do a lot of location scouting, finding natural light, and end up becoming the director of this video. As I mentioned, we were in this really beautiful brutalist housing, poured concrete. The West Bank, if you know it, in Minneapolis. It's been in the news of late, but we shot there at 2 o'clock in the morning. But this kid who we run into has a pet baby squirrel that he's found. So, on the fly, the squirrel becomes the star of the video. And this still is the first internet post that you're gonna see today. Y'all got any questions? Let us continue. Oh, yes. No. Let's see here. How do we do that? Top left corner. Phew. Wow. Thank you so much. It's the little things. Okay. Bow. All right. This headdress was made with my sisters, Stasia and Catherine, who are better known as Dissatisfaction. If you guys do not know Dissatisfaction, change your life today. THEESATISFACTION. The prototypical black queer hip hop funk group. If you like, insert anything you like. Live, Larry, help me out. Janelle Monáe, anything rad, black, queer, Brooklyn, Seattle, it's them. Signed to Sub Pop, 2011, 2 amazing albums, Au Natural and Earthy. But this piece was made with Catherine and Stasia during the lead up to a show called, let's see, what was this one? This was called Moment Magnitude. Thank you, Larry. Brought you for a reason. So in 2012, there was a survey show done at the Fry Art Museum by kind of a cadre of curators underneath the direction of Joanne Bernie Dansker, who's no longer at the Fry, to kind of talk about this moment of magnitude, right? It's a reference to seismic activity, but Bernie Dansker felt like she was witnessing something similar to what was happening in Europe in the 20s, this fervent kind of thing. So she invites all these artists in. We as a collective got invited in kind of in this confused state because we had made work. none of it was exactly eponymous. They wanted music, because that's what they always want for black people, entertainment. And I was like, why we're not doing, you're an art museum and you've come to artists, so you're gonna get art. And if we do some programming, maybe you'll get some music too, but we're not here for the entertainment. And so that is how it becomes this thing. But what I did was bring my sisters who are entertainers into the dynamic, as well as several other people, got the family checks, everybody ate, but we made a really beautiful piece that actually, though it's presented as a necklace here, drapes over the face. I think I have an image later on. The Fry purchased this along with other works. At that point in time, it was my first museum acquisitions. An important piece about this. I almost got killed the day my youngest was born. Her name is Octavia Alley-Barnes. I almost got ran over while carrying her older brother, who's 13 months older, in a backpack by a neighbor who was suffering from dementia and decided she was gonna get into her Ford F-150 and drive around the traffic circle in our neighborhood really, really fast. When I got to the hospital after everything calmed down, I go in my pocket and I realized that I have the woman's keys. Because after she hit we jumped out the way and she hit the curb and I ran to the car apparently in shock, removed her keys from the car, threw them in my pocket, got assistance, and then rushed to the hospital because there was another child on the way. But when I got there, like I said, I found the keys. The key to the truck is sitting just inside of that shell. Any questions about this piece? Cool.
What else is it made out of?
Oh, okay, great question. So what was mentioned in my practice is that I'm really all about, one, sustainability, but also affordability, right? Accessibility. The notion that we would go to an art store to achieve things that are in abundance all around us or is just antithetical to me. Plus, as my friends Tova and Larry tell you, I got a lot of shit. I'm very organized, but I got a lot of stuff. So, in this case, there is an antique rosary, Victorian era rosary. There are Ashanti bronze, what would be considered, I guess, by the Western world, fetish pieces for fertility. Those are the four outside pieces. We have some jewelry, some bone and deek, which is a small antelope horn. Beads. What else we got here? I'm trying to remember. Oh, the lighter blue is a Kenyan glass bead. What else we got? I think that's what I can remember. Oh, there's some ivory. Yeah. Incantation, spell. Some secret stuff. Yeah. All right. By show of hands, I know you guys didn't get necessarily a whole lot of lead in to get introduced to my work, but who here is familiar with my work, who has seen any of my work? And if not, please feel no way. But if by show of hands, is anybody familiar? A couple people? Okay. I would argue this is probably a still from the most well-known work of mine. This person is named Hannah Johans. She is an Ethiopian woman who grew up in Seattle, Washington. This is a still from a short film called Ode to Octavia, which also the last piece was a part of. We made a suite, 13 pieces, in honor of Octavia Butler. And this is part 12, the film. We went to the Methal Valley, was supposed to be like 30 people, but ended up being about 12, 13 people, cast, all beautiful black people of varying different skin tones, dressed them in clothing that I designed. It was rendered by a good friend named Anna Rose Telks, who's an artist in her own right. And went out to the Methal Valley and shot this short film. And if you haven't seen it, that is open source and available. But one of the things that was necessary out there, because there's no lighting, was to import lights. So we took a whole truck out, which is like a panel truck. And one of the things we had was a 10K light. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with the power of a 10K light, but it's if you've ever been on a set, it gets hot. So the Meth Valley has no lights naturally after a certain hour. So if you put a 10K light in the middle of a valley, turn it on, what happens? I had it out there so we could see little girls dancing in the forest at night. Inadvertently, it ended up being a very major sacrifice of moths and other flying creatures. But what ended up happening before most of them, the ones that did meet their end, is they got stunned and shocked. So whilst we were shooting, our intrepid heroine here took her director's cue, reached down, grabbed a really large moth, and the moth became the star of this particular video. Yeah. And I'm wrong, this isn't the best known work at all. Anybody know what that is? It's a good call. It's not, though. I'm sorry, speak up, somebody.
Galleon?
What?
Is it galleon?
It's another good call. It's not, though. You guys are really exotic with it. It's not that deep. Say what now? It is steel. It's steel. It's just a steel drop. This happens when you're smelting. This one kind of looked like an ankh. It was on the floor someplace. I picked it up, took it home. I'm sorry, what was it? Somebody? No? I have a penchant for picking things up and taking them home. All right. Here's an outtake from that same video that I mentioned before, Ode to Octavia Part 12. This never made it to the screen. Obviously, it's quite blurry. But these are, at the time, members of Shabazz Palaces. Ishmael Butler of Digable Planets fame, Cherry Wine, and obviously Shabazz. Seattle native, went to Garfield High School before reaching his heights elsewhere. Tendai Marar, multi-generational instrumentalist from Zimbabwe, on the right of the screen, and his niece, who is the dancer I was referring to in the woods, in the middle, inside of an Olsen Kundig home, or Olsen Kundig design space out in the Methil Valley. They're called the Rolling Huts. You can look them up. If you don't know Olsen Kundig's work, there is some impressive work, although someone in the room may find that they're rinsing and repeating a little too often. No shots fired. I love him though. Alan's the homie. All right. And you guys ever seen that before? Do they even use that logo anymore? Nah, okay. This is a vintage Seattle Library logo. I have reinterpreted it for a business that is now my children's business, which we could talk about later, but yes, that is where I spent a lot of my life, and a lot of my books to this day are decommissioned from the Seattle Public Library. Thoughts, feelings? How are you guys about taxidermy? An aside, but a funny one, kinda, depending upon how you feel about your ex. I used to date a woman who grew up as an equestrian, right? So as an equestrian, you have to go get tack, right? Different things for your horse, saddles, stirrups, reins, yeah? Tack stores notoriously are also the places where they sell guns and all kinds of stuff like that. Think Cabela's, not that Cabela's is truly a tack store. The other thing that tack stores are inclined to have is the heads of dead animals in them. As I said, former paramour, really into horses, deathly afraid of taxidermy. All right, that's the story. This is a movie prop, actually, that I found at the Pacific Antiques Gallery. It is full scale, a silverback gorilla. It later became incorporated into a piece that we can talk about later, but yeah, this is an early picture. Like I said, I was on Instagram not knowing what the fuck I was doing. All right. This one's interesting. Really rudimentary things. This necklace occurs later. This freshwater pearls, Japanese, probably from the 30s. But the face was the beginning of a piece that, where that sits now. I think that still lives someplace in a box. But kind of some of my first early full-sized human head masking approaches. Because for a long time, everything I was doing was not necessarily decorative, but it did not have, as far as the things that were figurative in nature, they did not have a, they were not being used. They were exactly what people like myself complain about in the Western notion around masking, right? They are decorative or for obscurification, not for ritual, not for, so anyways, this was kind of an early attempt at kind of trying to play with that. It ended up becoming something else, but yeah. Let's see here. Any questions about that? Hand compressed trash.
Your thought process behind adding those gold pearls from the 30s?
Oh, honestly, at the time, I was just playing. It was just like a layout. You know what I mean? Like all these things are just, a lot of the stuff that you're gonna see on here, like if it's on my Instagram, it's probably not just a work in progress, but it was probably just a flat and I was messing with it. I wanted to look at it. And that's really what this ended up becoming for me. It was just more of a mood board, like a handy mood board. Like other people's interaction with it was secondary for sure at this period of time, but yeah. So yeah, I was interested in seeing what the adornment might potentially look like. I had this cool necklace that I had found in the estate sale. Sometimes you got to put a thing next to a thing to figure out the thing don't go with the thing. Yeah, right. Boop. This piece I will show you the actual piece later, but. Let me see here. Anyways, man, high quality phone camera. And you had all those weird filters. I think I was messing with those then. Oh, so this, you guys saw Tendai before. This is Tendai's wife. Well, ex-wife now. Larry would have caught it if I didn't. This is a dress that I designed. At her request, and rendered by my friend Mark Mitchell, who's another brilliant artist. If you don't know his work, check him out. He is a garmento and a master tailor and dressmaker, but he also makes really beautiful ceramic work and has a he's on the internet at Clay Cult Houston, or Clay Cult Tucson. He moved down to Arizona with his partner, who's one of Larry's old colleagues, Kurt. Oh, Larry, do you guys ever listen to KXP in the afternoons? Like driving? Do you guys know KXP, the radio station? Sometimes you're like, whatever, we don't listen to that. It's a radio. You should though, because every afternoon there's this really, really smart, witty cat who plays tunes, and he's sitting right there, and he's playing hooky today. Anyways, what's the point? You guys got questions about my fashions? Okay. This is my father. This is my father in his studio, which I now occupy. And once upon a time, it had sound. And it's my dad being obstinate about not caring about what other people think about his work. Because my father, though a brilliant artist, was decidedly under-recognized in his lifetime. And is decidedly under-recognized in his passing. But that's changing. But he literally didn't give a shit. He just wanted to make work. And he did that. But it was heartbreaking to find out that I didn't have the sound anymore, because I only have like, it's not an issue. Trust me, I know I'm a Luddite, but I know for a fact that this video ain't got the sound. I wept over it, trust me.
What mediums are you working?
My dad? Sculpture, so metal, wood. He was a master cabinet builder and a boat builder. He was a painter, a draftsman. A lot of them. Yeah. Wordsmith, dapper dresser.
Do you have a lot of his work still?
We have most of it. Yeah.
Is there any way to see his work? I know we're here to
Yeah, absolutely. No. Well, no, but I mean, yeah, absolutely. So one, the Fry did a retrospective, and then 2014, there is a catalog for that.
Where?
The Fry Art Museum, yeah. So there's a catalog for that. It's called Curtis Barnes, The Unicorn Incorporated. You can probably find it on Amazon, or the Fry may have a few copies still. There's not a whole lot of his work online on purpose, but his name is Curtis R. Barnes Jr. If you were to Google him, there would definitely be things that would come up. But there is literally like a coffee table monograph. Yes.
Did you and him ever collaborate on like a shared piece together?
Hundreds.
I would love to see.
Yeah, they're probably a little more rudimentary than you're thinking, though, because they were like, he's drawing something really awesome, and I'm like, I need to get up on that with my crayon. Oh, they're cool. I've been trying to think about like how to incorporate like the naive works that people really just always want from black guys who look like me anyways, which I was making when I was a child. That's a art world jab. You didn't get it. You guys aren't even at the point where you're cynic about the art world yet. This is nice. Anyways, but yeah, so, but yes, no, there are collaborative works, but we didn't do a whole lot of collaborative work as we got older. Collaboration is like for me, I think, and we should talk about that, because I think that oftentimes collaborations are forced when you're at certain stages in your arc as a maker, as opposed to letting the work talk and thus having fruitful collaborations, because the work is what's resonating, not just we look cute together when we're out at things, or, you know what I'm saying? So, and not to knock that too, I guess that's art. But anyhow, again, to your question earlier, my man's in the Evergreen t-shirt or sweatshirt, layouts, just playing around, stuff around that. I was just, And collage, no matter how we break it down, or assemblage is a huge backbone of my work, but it is always starting by just laying it out, man. What's this look like on top of this? What does this look like against this, Paint swatches on your wall before you paint. It's that, Because, the joke, when people do come to my studio, it's like, oh, there's a lot of stuff. And it's like, yeah, there's a peek inside my brain. But the reality of it is that there's these things have to be allowed to communicate with each other. And sometimes the thing that seems quite obvious is like, oh, this makes all the sense in the world, is perfect until you see it next to the thing that it's actually supposed to go with, right? Anyhow, this shouldn't even be on Instagram, but it is. All right. How's this working for y'all? Is this remotely interesting, sorta? Okay, so this is from the most well-known piece that I've probably made. And this is Shabazz Palace's video, the most viewed Shabazz Palace's video, the opening sequence. This is an outtake. This is my good friend and sister, Jordanis Akalu, another Ethiopian woman who grew up in Seattle. And I was on a shoot as an art director and a costumier in this strange warehouse in Soto. And it had all of this stacked wood, just like these, I-beams. And I'm just like, man, this is, it's, if you were to imagine that those stacks continue off screen in either direction, that's how much there was. And it's obviously salvaged from some, quite ancient building. Anyways, found environment, separate shoot. I was like, yo, I gotta get back in there. We gotta make something. And this is the opening sequence of which is this. All the traditional works here are from my familial collection. And the chair is a singular piece by an architect named James O'Hara, who studied at RISD underneath Wendell Castle, who is an architect and designer of note. If you guys don't know Wendell Castle, get into Wendell Castle, because Wendell Castle is one of them ones. But his student, James O'Hara, for his senior project at RISD, made this chair and a bed. That is one piece of bent wood, well, two pieces, but anyways. If you're a woodworker, you understand that level of steam, et cetera, is not a joke. But that is open source and available. Yes, I'll answer your question in 1 second. But that is open source and available. Shabazz Palaces, Are You, Can You, Where You Felt. Yes?
What did it or does it mean to be an art director of this video?
In this case, I was the art director in this video because I'm the art director on all my videos, but in the other thing was a feature-length film, and in that case, it was, because it was like, you know, a decidedly ununion, non-Hollywood situation, it was a bunch of shit. There was no art department, that was me, and so it was location scouting, dressing the location, so that's furniture, that's, you know, all the things, making it pretty, as we like to say in shorthand in the biz. In this case, often it's clothing. I fancy myself an auteur, and the distinction between an auteur and a filmmaker or director is that an auteur has a all-encompassing notion of the finished product, right? Think Akira Kurosawa, right? He's going to draw the storyboard, he's going to write the thing potentially, he's going to direct it, he's going to be heavily on the art department like, no, that's not quite accurate, you know what I mean? So in this case, if you're talking about this one, pretty much all my works of this manner, cast it, dress it, direct it, write it. I don't shoot it, but I sit on an editor like a mug, and their technical ability is, they get an editor credit, but most of them should probably just be an assistant editor at best, because I'm the one who, if you saw a cut, is me. Does that answer the question? And if not, then please, let me expound.
Were you involved in, directing the filming process, on the set, or?
Yes, that's what I'm trying to explain to you. Yes, I am the director. If I'm talking to you about a film work here, I am the director, as well as the writer, as well as the costumier, as well as technically the art director, or, so yes, all the things. But to be clear, I almost always work with a cinematographer or a DP, right? So that's whose hand's on the camera. Yeah? Filmmaking for me is a collaborative undertaking. I get that people have gotten really DIY with it out of necessity and cost, but I like the, not just the pattern, but that exchange that happens when it's healthy set. So it's collaborative, and I love it because of that, because it becomes not only generative on just a personal level, but it's, you never really know what's going to come from that level of trust amongst people. Yes, any other questions about this particular piece? Yes?
It's more broad.
Sure.
But
Also, please don't feel, if anything just appeals to you, I'm big into tangents if you can't tell, so please feel free to just ask.
You keep talking about collaboration, and I'm wondering when you collaborate with people who have less experience in...
I don't.
Visual... Oh.
I'm kidding. I do it all the time.
Okay. In visual arts, or even just the art that you are more privy to, or you find yourself
Oh, I'm hella exposed. Number one, we start there. I'm old. I'm 50. Okay? Not that means if it hit anybody, please don't take it that way. But I'm old enough that I'm very exposed. Yes? I've honed my taste, which is something I encourage all of you to do. Yes? Honing one's taste is the most essential thing, I think, for a human. Well, that's not true. That's excessive and privileged as a mug. But for those of us who are in a certain position, I think it is one of the grandest undertakings. It leads to less waste. It leads to less time wasted, more time devoted to the things that you actually enjoy and like, but figuring that out. So, but to your initial question, because I think there was something that you said in there that I was joking about, but then I realized I was being honest. I've learned to make some rare exceptions, but to almost only collaborate with people who are on a collegial level at this point in time. Now, that does not mean that it's not intergenerational. That does not mean that there isn't a range of time spent, but what I would like in a shorter time spent is a level of intensity and rigor that offsets the lack of time, yeah? Because what I've learned, unfortunately, is people who have not put the time in, they have not developed yet the understanding of the importance of follow-through quite often. They are still trying to figure it out. And I'm well past that point. So I don't really have the time. I don't collaborate for fun. right? This thing is it's beyond us, as they say. What was the meme? It's above me now, right? The whole thing for me with art is above me. It's a choice, right? But the choice is between being sick and unwell or being healthy, not making art or making art, if that makes sense to you. I choose to be healthy. But in that, I also have to choose collaborations that are healthy, because often these collaborations are vampirous. They're not an exchange, you know? Does that make sense? Yeah. So I'm down to teach, but it's going to be a different thing. Probably collaboration is probably the wrong word, right? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, so often when there's somebody younger, unless they're what we call a puppy with big feet, like there's just so much potential, I'll probably say, come back to me. Let's talk when you've taken more reps, you know? Because I don't want you to also, because the other thing is, if you haven't done, and I hate to use sports analogies here, but if you haven't done enough calisthenics, what shouldn't be a heavy lift will be for you, and you're gonna slow the bigger thing down. So it's a disservice to you as much as it's a disservice to the bigger picture, right? And we're all in service to the work above all else. That's all. Does that answer the question?
Well, I never posed my question.
Oh shit, I'm sorry. I'm super curious. No, I apologize.
I sealed down a lot of what you said. I was just wondering, where do you like draw lines in your personal choice? Where do you like? How do you in these?
I'm super rigid. Can you tell?
Huh?
I'm super rigid. Can you tell?
But like, how much is it process? How much is it like vision beforehand? And like, how
that's a great question. I'm highly improvisational. I don't sketch a lot. I don't draw a lot. I do draw, but I draw like as a practice separate. Rarely, I mean, if I'm trying to communicate something to somebody else, I sketch and plan stuff out, or if the idea is too big or the medium is unattainable at the time, sure. But most of what I do is from the gut, and then I let it talk to me, because I believe myself and know myself to be a vessel. So my job is to just be clear enough to receive the message. So,
ultimately, in your collaborations, are you like the final say in like if something?
I think that shifts depending upon role. I think that it's like, I think of like people, we work very much like a fungal network. We fill the spaces that are necessary. And with the we, I'm referring to Black Constellation, which is the collective that Skylar referenced that I'm part of. And had a hand in, I guess, the founding thereof. Larry is also a part thereof. So yeah, sometimes, but sometimes. Because I trust, as I said earlier, that notion of trust. I know that I trust the taste levels and the choices that these collaborators that I've been working with, that I found via the work, not because they were snazzy dressers, or had all the ladies, or all the coke. I don't like coke, but you understand my point? Do you guys get it? Okay. Is that, I'm sorry, and I'm super sorry for stepping on the lead there and not letting you get the question out there. That's.
I think I got like 3 questions answered.
All right, shall we move on? So, Are You Can You Where You Felt, you can find that on YouTube if you wanna. All right. Oh, that's my dude. That's Musashi. This is my son. This is my middle child. He is also an artist. He's now almost 15 and a freshman at a high school in Seattle. But this is when he was a little dude and he liked to play all kinds of stuff. But big on the imagination, that one. And the reference to our Sculptors Guild is not actually a joke. Let's see here. Bah. Oh, that's an early iteration of a Shabazz headdress, which you guys saw some stills. But these were all made for something called the Stranger Genius Awards. The Satisfaction, which I referenced before, and Shabazz Palaces performed together when Shabazz Palaces won a Stranger Genius Award in 2010, Larry? 2011. So right after the girls got signed. Okay. So at this point in time, Shabazz and The Satisfaction have been signed to Sub Pop, which was like a coup. I don't know how much you guys know about Sub Pop or grunge music, but can you name any Black artists on Sub Pop? Right. So literally, my collective has Shabazz, The Satisfaction, Porter Ray, Nick Galanin, or Yatsin. Who am I missing? Oh yeah, then there's Indian Agent, right? Which is technically a separate thing on Sub Pop. So so Nick is indigenous, but everybody else is black. So my crew increased the black artists of Sub Pop by 100%, 200%, 300% in quick succession. And I won't get into the business of that. Record industry is a record industry, and I think you guys witnessed the death of it. But that said, these were made for that performance. There were 4 of them. I'm actually remaking one of them, which got lost, for an exhibit at Mopop that is featuring Stasia, or Stas the Boss, who also DJs at KXP on Fridays every other week. But it's part of that group, Dissatisfaction, which I'm telling you, go get you some Dissatisfaction.
You talked about like masks as a mean of escape versus like identity. Could you maybe talk a little bit more?
Sure, absolutely. So the Western notion of masquerade, which is often how it's referred to even when talking about the more indigenous traditions, and by indigenous insert black, yes? Wherever we're talking about. We're talking about Hopi, we're talking about like this is, when I say black, I mean root. So we're not talking about race as much here as we are talking about indigeneity, yeah? And I want you to get out of your brain the notion that that looks like one thing, because you mentioned the fact that I am of an African descent. I'm also Mississippian. If you don't know what that is, look that up, because it's important, because it's an important portion that is not spoken about around this country in its history. But when things like Lent and all these other things where there's a bacchanal, kind of a release, yes, that goes on around repression. Like, I get a day when I get to do whatever. Often there's this desire to obscure your identity, right? So you can go be buck wild. Great, it's fine. The traditions that you start to talk about, when you talk about truly ritualistic dynamics, right? You're talking about someone who has spent years in ceremony, years and ritual to prepare to even be able to don the thing. Many of the superstructures that you see are 45, 50 pounds. Some are 200 pounds. I don't know when the last time any of you guys walked around with 200 pounds above your neck was, but that would take some level of physical preparation amongst other things, right? But more importantly, these things are out of context when we've interacted with them most in the West, right? They're sitting in collections, whether that's in some, basement in a museum, whether that's lined up at SAM in that weird way that they have it there with the parochial school uniforms and shit. And more importantly, sacrilegiously as hell, different belief systems and ancestral energies jammed up against each other, never being abulated, never being, given the appropriate rights. So a huge part of what I do, what Nick does, is having occasion to go and see our people, see our ancestors, and, pour a little something out for them, right? But in the root of your question is intent, right? Like, why was it done? How long has it been done? Where did it come from? The Dogon will tell you they got it from Sirius B, right? The Hopi will tell you something similar. They both live in cave dwellings and they got real tall joints and they talk to you know what I'm saying? Like, what we're talking about is so old when we start talking about these traditions that are about real embodiment and real, I don't even feel comfortable as a non-initiate in a lot of these to tell you what the other extreme is. But I'm super comfortable telling you that the Western notion of it is empty comparatively. How's that? Yeah. No problem. And this is important too, because for me, I don't make headdresses as a rule unless they intend to be danced. I don't do this work for object fine art purposes. So there is a distinction. There is works of mine that can be consumed in a certain way, and then there are things that are made for the wearer, and that's just that. Okay? Different things go into them. That's what I'll say, without saying too much. Yes.
Is that sort of the same thing with fashion for you, of creating things for the wearer, or like?
I don't make fashion anymore. fashion is the most wasteful industry on the planet. I participated in it for almost 4 years. I had a cut and sew company with a business partner named Matt Noren called Tarbu. And we made 10,000 garments in 3 years, 2 people. I don't know if you understand what kind of a rate that is for, well, not 10,000 garments, 10,000 items. So that's, some cases that's keychains and I don't have a Tarbu bag, but we made bags, Letterman's jackets, men's shirts, dresses, hats, did production for other small businesses. So anyways, I did my bid in that after years and years and years and working in vintage clothing and old things, because that's how I paid for my daughter to go to Berchi and my house note and things like that. Finding old things that nobody else wanted and putting them in the hands of people who did want them for perhaps obviously a markup. So no, I don't participate in that anymore. I don't even really shop past the point at this point. What I do, in answer to your question, is use the textiles in, funny enough, timing enough, that way. So this is, I think, the first pelt. Yeah, and again, some shit was laying on my floor, dude. Oh shit, that goes with that. That's how it started. So the thing though about the pelts, right? They have a lot of different things that are not necessarily seen, sewn in, tucked in, but they're also a continuation of the masking tradition. But this is where I will go more decorative with these dynamics. Now, it may not be quite as obvious, but as we start to go through them, it maybe becomes a little bit more obvious. Zoom out a little bit and stop focusing on the fact that you're looking at clothes. If you start to think about the phrenology of a face, we often have 2 eyes, a nose usually sits in the same relative space. You find the same thing in masking. So bear that in mind, zooming out from these. Obviously there's a materiality and other things that happen. This particular piece is made with a Japanese mail bag, which is consistent with internment. There's some moccasins. Sweater is from the 20s. The Mustang patch, I don't know where in the world that came from. And then, yeah, the bear's head, which is, on the larger size, probably from the 30s. So, the thing about these, this is one of the most rudimentary ones, is that obviously sometimes they could come together pretty immediately, but most, they take some time of like, oh, well, that would go with it, you know what I mean? And so it's an aggregation process too, right? So some of that also kind of in answer to one of the questions asked earlier is, yeah, it's about the time it takes for them to even be imbued with something. And that's kind of part of the thing about the collaborator thing. You want your collaborators to get some season into them. At least I do. But at earlier stages, it makes sense to find people who are there with you and also people who are beyond you so you can learn from them. But the thing I want to say to all of you, because every time I ask, there's a guy named Dan Webb here, brilliant professor, maybe some of you guys are in this class, he's amazing woodworker. I asked, so Dan, nobody wants to apprentice with you? He's like, oh no, people want to apprentice with me all the time. Problem is, after 6 months or a year and they think they figured out whatever they want to know, they get harder and harder to find, or they're, you know what I mean? And that's the thing I think that unfortunately, and this is not an ageist notion, we are getting to a point where people are far less interested in putting in the time to become actually good at a thing, But you guys are, most of y'all are relatively young, and even those of you who aren't, or at least have enough breath to get better if you put the time in. All right, let's see here. Oh, here's another pelt. Second pelt. Any questions about pelts?
Where do you find all these old materials?
All over the place. Yeah, like literally. Like I grew up in thrift stores and estate sales, and this is how I live to this day. So what I argue is that I don't find the things, they find me.
What is the meaning of the title for you?
Meaning of what title?
Betwixt Brains.
Betwixt Brains. It's very specific, this one. Often, so I should say all the pelts are specific, they're literally portraits, they're like satirical portraits of folks. but there are also more overarching statements about, we'll call them societal woes or issues that people might be having. Have you ever heard a euphemism or a reference to big brain and little brain in reference to men? Do I need to be more explicit, my dear? Have you heard the term? I'm not trying to be funny. Like, it's a term. You let the small brain make your decision for you. So betwixt those two, there's a liminal space. It's a callback. Comedy is my other gig. All right. Yeah? Does that make sense? I mean, so in this case, this other one's called curses. This one's just a bad joke. But anyways, be careful what you ask for. John Henry. You guys know who John Henry is? Yes. You know who Ezra Jack Keats is? You guys know who Ezra Jack Keats is? Ezra Jack Keats is one of the most amazing and prolific storybook illustrators, period. But he's from my childhood. He's not a black man, but he made these lovely, 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 there's one called The Snowy Day, and they're like collages and paintings and watercolors. They're just really lovely. If you haven't seen any Ezra Jack Keats work, I think probably most of the older people in the room are like, oh yeah, of course. I either grew up on it or read it to our kids. But this is the book that he wrote about John Henry. And John Henry, for me, is the abject tale of woe. Who to not be. Anyhow. But he was born to work. Somebody gets the comedy. All right. These are just images from that. Yeah. I like your
I was wondering, so you said that like a lot of like the art that you make and stuff like that is like you'll kind of just see different things and be like, oh, those things go together. Why don't we try this? I guess I was wondering is that like as you make these pieces, like do they kind of start to form more meaning like from the original spontaneous like?
Oh yeah, that's what. So yes. So for example, I rarely have ever named a piece before it was done. Like I've never said, oh, I want to make a piece about gun violence. The actual star of the show. But you know what I mean? Like it's kind of a nebulous. I mean, the answer is yes. But sometimes things just, they already, it comes as it comes. You know what I mean? Like sometimes they're fully formed things. Sometimes the thing is just a sketch. So the 2 cents about my film career. That was just me convincing a corporation to pay for my film school. So the first music video is my first film ever. There's no student film. My second music video is my second film ever. Now, I wasn't quite as smart as I thought because I got into business with an independent record label. And the budget realities of music videos had shifted drastically by the time I was at the helm and not just in the art department. So I was making less money as a director, maybe even paying for things, and I was making as, a secundo in the art and production side. So I say all that to say, sometimes I can't make the thing happen yet. Right? Like scale, materiality. I feel that way about a lot of the film projects that me and Larry are working on. We have a production company. We don't have enough money to do it yet or enough relationship capital to do the thing yet, right? And I feel that way sometimes about works. You need to get it out, right?
The reason I ask is because this is my professor Stephen infecting my brain right now. But,
is Stephen here someplace? No, okay.
But we talk a lot in class about like the meaning of art and how meaning develops and where it comes from in art. So I was curious about your relationship to that and how it kind of develops in your works.
Okay. Steve is going to hate me. Okay, so here's the thing, right? The difference, this is my father. Okay, so this pontificating in his studio. The difference, so how one distinguishes an artist from, let's say, a really good graphic designer. Both are probably technically capable, right? The graphic designer may have, in some cases, even put in more time and work. It's possible. But the question is, what do you have to say? How receptive are you to the messages? Have you made yourself to the messages that are coming through from wherever they come from? And I think there's a lot of people who refer to themselves as artists who are not that, in my opinion. And that seems pejorative, but it's not. It's just that, like, there was a period of time, and there's enough people in this room who are old enough to remember it, that you could be a masterful painter and you would not call yourself an artist because you understood that that was deeper than just being good with the quills and the pigments. So, I challenge you that if you're going to refer to yourself as an artist, to have something to say, or make some space for folks that do and be a different part of the art ecosystem, because we need patrons, we need curators. That's the thing that always cracks me up, the number of insanely rich kids who want to be shitty artists as opposed to becoming the next Guggenheim. So understand that all this stuff has a value. It's just, unfortunately, there's a premium on being the quote-unquote talent right now, which I find terribly ironic, because I used to tell people I was an artist and they'd be like, so how the fuck are you eating? It was not a thing that everybody and their mama wanted to do. And I'm not saying everybody wants to now, but it's societally acceptable in a way that it was not when I was you guys' age. And not to say that I didn't have other jobs, but when I said that, people almost looked at me with a level of like, oh, good luck with that, And mind you, I'd been working professional since I was 16, and people would tell me that 10, 15 years later. So, I say all that to say, when you talk about meaning, it's a very personal dynamic, right? Like, none of this stuff is like, this is a societally subjective thing. Did it make you feel something? If the answer is no, then you might want to ask yourself, is there any meaning in this thing? Now, everything's not going to resonate for us per our experiences, what we like, hopefully our own set of tastes. Hopefully we can educatedly and succinctly, and maybe even at length, tell you what we do not like about it, and then tell us 12 things that we do like. But you gotta see enough art to do that. And if you're making art, you gotta make enough art to do that. And I think that what I find is, people are like, oh, I want a studio visit, come look at my work. And you're like, great. And they show you 10 paintings. And that's cool, but that's not a studio practice yet. It's the beginning of one, but a very early, I'm talking, I had 10 paintings when I was 2.5. You know what I'm saying? And I don't mean to be funny, like I'm some wonder kid. I just mean to say that, these journeys are lifetime journeys. Just because, anyways. Do you like it is the question. You know what I'm saying? In every case. And this notion of a universal meaning, or that there is some academic way to measure that, is bullshit, my love. But guts and feeling are not bullshit. They're the shit. I got those. What's up?
So, in that vein, I was wondering, do you ever make something and it makes you feel some way, you love it, but you just cannot figure out why and what the meaning is and what it's saying and what you want to say about it?
All the time.
All the time.
It's not my job. I'm in service. I've removed myself from the situation in that way. Oh, don't trip. I revel in the fact that I get some of these messages and I'm chosen to, but there's a humility in that, one. And it allows me to step away from it enough to be like, it's going to tell me what it needs to. But is that always crystalline from the skip? No. But why would it be? You know what I mean? That's not to the point. Any of you guys garden or do any, there's cycles around all these things, right? Some stuff's 7-year cycle, some stuff is, quarterly, right? But the point being is that they each have their place in, call it the ecosystem of your oeuvre, right? Your body of work. Because sometimes the thing, and this is, me and Nick joke about this all the time, because my friend is like a rock star, and literally, but also in the art world now, but after 20 years of people not caring, or him being kind of siloed into ethnographic kinds of work, and now he's the guy. But most of the stuff people are into are things he made 10 years ago. most of the things that people like, I mean, people like these new sculptures, but all the pelt stuff that people love, it's like 12, 13 years old. I mean, I'm still making it, like, and I think that's the other thing. To somebody's, like, I got bodies of work that started 15 years ago that I'm still making additions to that body. So even that is this kind of like letting a thing breathe, you know what I mean? Like sometimes the things, I mean, if you come to my studio, there are things that are unfinished and have been unfinished since, and they may never get done. Not that I even know what done is. Half the time it's the person who bought it or the institution is ready to take it off your hands. Thanks, Pam. Yes, does that answer your question?
Yes.
Sorry to point. I'm not answering your questions, but you, I will answer. I'll come to you next. You look like a...
I guess I'm curious about, you kind of talked about, I don't know, like technical skill and understanding of a medium versus like creativity and exploring something, and feeling through art. And I guess I'm wanting to hear more about your process with that, or like, yeah, the difference between like really understanding how to paint, or like paint a really good portrait technically, but that's just some kind of skill that you've well-rounded and you're not really searching for anything in that. I don't know.
I don't know that you're not really searching anything. I mean, if you paint, then you know that paint can be an obsessive thing. Like it's you know, there is a potential madness in trying to quote unquote understand any medium, right? That said, like, because you could go at it forever. For me, I think my interest above all, just on a personal level, if I'm to put myself back in it, is in telling stories, right? And so it is reps, you know what I mean? Like it is like pure kind of calisthenics. It is making your hands smart. It is getting your eyes and hands to talk together. It is, in my case, being healthy enough like on a physical level, and again, that can be considered kind of ableist, so I want to just go ahead and like put that out there. Like I am somebody who has the privilege of being of relatively sound mind and body, so that's, you know, certain things I don't have to process in my journey towards making a thing, but I'm also somebody who, you know, has a familial predilection towards diabetes, and if he doesn't exercise, is not fun to be around. So, you know, those things matter, right? Like the blood pumping for me is part of the ritual. Because the problem in the Western dynamic is that we've compartmentalized all the things. You used to do all the stuff together. You'd eat the food, you'd have the fungus, you'd sip the wine, you'd dance, you'd sweat, you'd fuck. You understand what I mean? Like, but it was componential. It was not this notion of I'm going to go over here and this thing is, because all these things informed it. So I think when you ask that question, what immediately went to my mind is that like the other thing about, and less about the art, but artists, is that like on some levels it's necessary to have some robust living in there so that you have something to talk about. I'm not saying you need to go and engineer some strife. Please don't, because there's nothing more pretentious than that. Because I know those artists, most of them are super, super rich. But as someone who doesn't have the luxury of cosplaying poverty, I think that leaning into the fullness of your experiences whilst you're having them, chewing your food a little longer, breathing a little deeper, you know what I'm saying? As cheesy as the live, laugh, love, like what is it, love, live, laugh, it might be, like that's just real. Like, yeah, do that, it helps. But my point is the world's ugly on a lot of levels. That shit is like medicine. I say all that to say, like, I think that, you know, it is practice and it is reps, but it's also like understanding that if you are truly meant to do this, you are always in the studio, whether you're making an object or not. Yeah? Everybody ain't meant to do it, and that's okay too. They're probably meant to do something else. And some of them will be taking up space and getting your grant money because they write better, or they do, I don't know, they're fucking the right person or their dad was. But that shouldn't deter you in the making process. But also some patience, my G. I don't know how old you are, and I'm not gonna put that on you, but most of you guys are in a rush, and though I can't guarantee that you have more time, odds are that you got a little bit. So use it. You know? I think that's the thing, is that, like, unfortunately there's so much time spent watching as opposed to doing. And doing is what produces all the shit you actually care for and like. All of it. You like your underwear? Somebody did that. All the stuff you like to watch, somebody did to make it so. Okay. So we ain't even got out of 2014. But I like how this is going. What time are we at? But I like this. 16? So here's a question. You guys want to skip to like more recent stuff? Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, I'll answer whatever questions in the meantime too. And we'll slowly scroll here. How about that? If you guys are just like, ooh, that. A jacket. Right here?
Yeah.
It's one of the pelts. It's actually an unfinished pelt. This pelt is actually sitting in the SeaTac airport right now if you want to go see it. Baggage claim 10, sure enough. This is called Wait, Wait, Don't Shoot, an incantation for Trayvon and Jazz. The Trayvon in question's last name is Martin. The Jazz in question's last name is Butler. Trayvon Martin was shot by George Zimmerman. Jazz Butler they were attempting to shoot Jazz Butler for a reality TV show at the begrudgment of the parent of his that I'm most close to. So it was a weird kind of wish that he be allowed his adolescence without having reality TV cameras on him. And that worked. And he's safe now. And some of you guys probably like his music a lot. What's the optimal name at this point in time? Lil Tracy? Lil Tracy. Anybody know Lil Tracy's music? Young Bruh? What else? You guys know Lil Peep though, right? Yeah? Lil Peep, like the guy who actually made Lil Peep cool? That guy. That's my little nephew. He's filthy. Anyways, so yeah, man. You like that jacket? I like that jacket too. I'm gonna show you some even cooler jackets. I found both of those jackets together in the same poundage. This is called Der Rabuberfall, which is German for the heist. Does anybody have a favorite album that might be called The Heist? No? Who? Oh. You did. True, he used to work with a guy named Ryan Lewis, too, who was a lot more on top of things than he was. Ben was dealing with his own opioid issue. So you might be looking at a portrait of the two of them. You know, opiates make you sleepy. Anyways, it's also about fascism and some more shit, but, you know. But it's really about the stealing of black cultural product for the sake of financial benefits for white boys. Has that ever happened before? Yeah.
I just more and more like found stuff you show. I've been like wanting to interact with found art more in like limited space though.
Can I just stop you really quickly?
Yeah.
I am not a found artist. I'm a refuse alchemist.
Okay. Well.
I'm so teasing you right now, but yes.
At college, like I have like no space, really.
Like studio space to work?
No, like place to put shit I find.
Oh.
And like my dad was a hoarder. But
it's a slippery slope, right?
What?
Slippery slope, that.
Yeah, you said you were organized, and I was wondering about your system of organization and if people ever get mad at you for hoarding shit or keeping shit.
I have enough space and some level of like dictation of that space, but my friends, for example, I was just traveling And I have a friend named Dream who I stay with sometimes, and she calls me a pack rat and hates it because I will pick up all the scraps and start drawing on them and shit, and she just wants to throw them away. But she doesn't mind it when she gets handed 12 drawings, you know what I'm saying? It's like, so,
When you're in the earlier stages though, like before you had access to as much space as you do now, how did you manage that?
By what I was talking about earlier and managing which projects I knew I could actually get accomplished. Sometimes something's so good, right? You can't just leave it. But honestly, a lot of the times, man, it's okay to just leave it there. It really is. And I think, yes, if you have hoarding as a dynamic, I don't know if it's epigenetic, I don't know if it's cultural, it's something you gotta watch out for, sure. But I think the bigger picture there is that, you know, when you ask me about system organization, I got racks, boxes, in a perfect world, I'd have even more space. I just actually, funny enough, have more space so I can expand a little bit, but I'm not trying to put a whole lot more stuff. It's just a matter of things being, instead of having to be stacked on top of each other, they can be arrayed, you know? But I think it's about biding your time sometimes, you know? I mean, because every project can't necessarily be accomplished. And I know everybody's like, well, just make it. It's like, yeah, sure, make something. But there are some that deserve to be done right, you know? And in regards to, you know, I think that, so for example, so I make big sculptures, right? But I also travel around with that. That is, every sculpture you've seen is made out of this. Masking tape. That's, fill, like the crack fill, you know, creates volume. You position it, it can become a torso, it can be any number of things, you know what I mean? Like, so I guess what I'm saying is a maquette is a lot more portable, you know? So sometimes it's a matter of doing the sketch because the full-size thing isn't ready yet. So yeah, if you're sharing space with somebody in a college dorm room, don't be antisocial by filling it with, you know what I mean, the deer carcass you found on the side of the road. That's, I know, a bit hyperbolic, but you understand my point. So yeah, but I think, because I do think it's important to also be considerate of because your environment is not just, you hear what I'm saying? Like, so yeah, it's a balance and it's a dance, but many of the things that I wanted to make have taken 25 years to get made. And I know that's kind of daunting, but it goes way faster than you think. And I realized if I was able to do it 25 years ago, not that it wouldn't have got accomplished, but I knew so much less that it would have been more expensive and frankly less gratifying. Because I would have been paying all my money to somebody who had a skill set that I now have. So that's kind of what I was saying previously about the calisthenics part. And just, you know, doing the work so that the lifting isn't as always, you know, the thing that may have seemed ridiculous is reasonable because it's, you know, you've done it X number of times or you've thought about it for 10 years. Because trust me, most of the stuff that you really love, I promise you, it was bubbling in there for a long time, whether that person realized it or not. So fear not. You will have more space for your stuff if you stay at it and have something to say. All right, I know I'm okay. This was fun. All right, let's see here. This is weird. I like it though. All right, so I'm gonna go right to the top real quick so we can get let's see here. What do we got? Okay, boom. Okay, yeah, newer sculptures. Oh, my son took all these. These are just works in progress. You guys wanna look at any of these? Any of this stuff look cool? Not me being cute. You can see me here. You don't need that. That's a newer pelt. This is portrait of a Zionist neighbor. It's actually a portrait of my neighbor. I live in Seward Park, which is not notoriously, it is a historically Jewish enclave in Seattle, Washington. And my neighbor up the street is virulently Zionist. I was raised a Muslim. and anti-Zionist. So, yeah. Anyways. Oh, I should probably have mentioned that my initial background in my first job in, both print media and technically art was as an editorial cartoonist. And so satire will always, if you guys haven't picked up on the fact that I like to crack a joke or two, just that. And this one's also at CTAC right now. And actually the full title is Assumption U, Acting a Donkey, which is a kind of euphemistic reference to what older black women would say to you if you were making a fool of yourself. But you guys are sure all aware of the whole euphemism of never assuming because you, there we go. Donkeys, asses, play on words, technically different creatures, but yes.
I'm curious if there's any pieces on your chair or anything that you feel like particularly connected to or connected to.
All of them. Absolutely, yeah. No. If I made it, it's like my kids. I feel really connected to all of them. Yeah, and I understand that people get into like superlatives about stuff and like my favorite. I never had a best friend. I never had a favorite thing. I like too much cool shit. And I know it's a reasonable question, but after a certain point in time, you make so much, I think I like my film work because I understand the parameters that were around it, even though I don't really watch it anymore, but I also think it's a portent to our future and what we're gonna be doing next. And so that's really important to me. I love doing this work, but the budgets suck, and it's not why I do it solely, but it is part of my living, So figuring out ways to be mercenary and still tell stories and still do the healing work and still do the, I think we figured out a Trojan horse that it excites me anyways. Right now I'm excited about, production dynamics and real budgets and episodic TVs and writers' rooms and that kind of stuff, as well as this stuff. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff happening, I guess, professionally I've been waiting for a long time. I just got an official offer for a internship, or not an internship, but a residency at the McCall Center in North Carolina. It's pretty cool. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm gonna do a bunch of research for my solo show and my first institutional solo in Amsterdam or Rotterdam in a couple of years. But anyways, let's see here. Go ahead. What's up? I see you. Yeah, you. Was there something that grabbed you? Oh, thanks. Snazzy. My son took this photo. Check this out. Thanks.
Oh, and everything matches perfectly.
Oh, well, I do what I can, dear. If I told you I was colorblind, would you believe me?
Yes.
Then you would be very gullible, my dear. Nah, but yeah, you never know, right? You're just meeting me today. This is many of the people I know who are colorblind have had somebody select their things. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. But I'm the guy who gets paid for that often. That's one of the ways I made money in life. Let's see here. Here's old sculptures that were made the same way. This is really early stuff, 2002. I just found photos recently. Me and Els were working on some stuff. Beep. Beep.
How were these made?
Same way, hand compressed trash, mummified with masking tape. Like I told you, this is literally, here you go. No smelting, very little waste as far as drop. Because the thing I learned in my art historian journey was that most of my favorite sculptors died of mesothelioma or complications related to some degree of lung, small particulate lung stuff. So I've always been really, and the medium I have now is almost completely additive. So it's rare for a sculpture to be done that way and built, hand built. Let's see here. I like this. It's a portrait of this artist that I'm really fond of named Kennedy Yanko. It's amazing. But what? Sure. What, are we gonna scroll that down? What do we gotta do? Where are we at? Was it way down? Other way. Oh, ooh, these are cool. Hold up. Right. No. Are you guys, no, I'm saying, no, but please, did you guys see this? You guys didn't see that. That's cool. I made that in, oh, so here's something that actually had as a reference. I rarely use a reference photo. There's a photographer named Zagorski who has a book called Lost Africa, photos he took in sub-Saharan Africa in the 20s. But he has a very particular scene, which, funny enough, let's see here, is my Instagram thing. And you see that? That is a man jumping over another man. But that is what you see right here. But these are men from Rwanda. They are Tutsi, Matutsi, like the word is said a bunch of different ways. There's a song that's famously called Do the Watutsi, which is decidedly ethnographically racist and other things. Was that Howie Mandel that sung that at one point in time? He did, I feel like something was, okay. Anyways, these people used to use staffs. So this is where pole vaulting comes from, as well as the t-shirt, funny enough. French missionaries saw these men's like collared, like uncollared shirts, and this is the French Foreign Legion takes them back to France, and that's what becomes a t-shirt, but that's an aside. The main thing is that these men are on the taller, and women are on the taller side, but they have an exercise that they do where they run kind of at a pitch, like at an arcing angle, and then run at a full speed, hit it with a staff, and pole vault over it. It's a battle training, but it looks like play, you know? And it's from a series actually that I'm working on still that's all about ranking, which is the euphemism we use for talking shit, like jousting. But anyways, yeah, so this is from the Frye Art Museum. All these sculptures made the exact same way. And these actually didn't get finished before I showed them, to the other point. I showed these, they showed up wet and not done. And they're not done to this day. But if somebody wants to show the work, I will go back into these. And they will look like I want them to, as opposed to how they had to look to make sure that I didn't look like a complete professional idiot. Just sort of one. All right, so this is the rest of the installation. So it had a video component. This is Sacred, which is also available, open source, if you'd like to watch it, both on my website, and you can just, yeah, Google it. Yeah, let's see here. Also, this is another still from that. Okay, you got any questions? Yeah, whoa, yes. Cool. I'm gonna turn, should I turn this off? Do we need this anymore? Or do you want to reference it? If you can't, I'll keep it on.
You said earlier, correct me if I'm wrong, I heard I have never said I want to make a piece about gun violence. Does that?
Well, I was just using as an example, like a societal issue, like an external societal issue is not how I generally tend to make my work.
Okay, I was just wondering because if that conflicted with having something to say as an artist.
No, I think that you can have something to say about a thing that you don't necessarily have a direct relationship to. Sure, you can comment on it all day. What I'm saying is that you need to have enough robust experiences personally to also have a good portion of you and your experiences in there too, as far as I'm concerned as an artist. Because even if you are commenting on something else, you must have enough of the emotional language and intelligence and sensitivity to be able to speak about it, right? And that only comes from living and doing. Because half the problem is that there's a lot of opinions that are not informed by lived experiences, yeah? And so that's more of what I'm saying. I'm not saying that a person can't make a topical piece. I've seen brilliant work. I mean, Guernica is Guernica, right? Like, think what you want about Picasso. Like, if there's a better visual art piece for the horrors of war that's still gorgeous and, you know what I mean, I don't know what it might be. But, and he was experiencing this, right? Like he had experienced multiple wars. But the point being is just that, like, I don't think somebody could have looked at a photo and made that work. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't think that they could have read a news feed and made that work, or watched Instagram, no matter how horrific, because we are exposed to hypergraphic things all the time. And I'm not saying you don't have a place, for example, to speak about the tragedies and genocide in Palestine. You do, and you should, but understand it is not necessarily going to be an intimate or lived experience. So you may be speaking way the fuck out of turn. So you're better off speaking about things that you know and that resound for you. And if you are genuinely that curious, I guess you can go find the things that you want to be. You understand what I mean? But I have a sneaking suspicion that if you actually really look at your life, there is something salient enough happening right there, and something that's universal enough too. Though it's particular to you, it has a resonance for somebody else. You know? Because as far as I'm concerned, if it doesn't do that, it doesn't have any resonance for it, then it may not be the most successful work. It may just be kind of a navel-gazing, kind of self-serving thing, and that there's a place for that too.
So before we thank you, I want to let you know that Ray Zone from our library says that we have a copy of Curtis R. Barnes' exhibition catalog.
There you go. You can check it out. But try to find one on Amazon. It's a lovely fucking book. It's really quite gorgeous.
Thank you so much.